All right, the last 5 or 6 months, I've been splitting my time between Touch Designer and Houdini, and then working in Touch Designer. I've been really impressed with the way that it just makes you think about data and how it handles that data in channels, and how easy that is to pass back and forth. And that's got me more interested in pursuing chops in Houdini, just to see how far I can push some of the work in there and what ideas that generates. So I'm going to start sharing a little bit of that with you guys now. The first thing I want to talk about is the keyboard in chop, which will let you use your computer's keyboard as an input. It'll take keystrokes and change those into impulses on certain channels, and then you can then use those channels to really drive whatever you can think of inside Houdini. So I'm going to just explain this as I go. I'm going to start with the geometry node. Ooh, I'm way zoomed out there. I'm going to hop inside, and just for our first test, I'm going to drop down a box. I'm going to move that up to just so it sits on the ground plane like that. And now to get into chops, to be able to start using those, you need a chop network. You can access this chop network at the global level. I tend to just put what I'm manipulating, or I just tend to put that right next to the geometry that I'm going to use these channels on. I feel like that just makes more sense to me, but you do it however you feel like. And as soon as you hop into that chop network, what that's done is that's brought you into the channel context. Now to see what is going to happen over here, you can go to this motion effects view. Just drop down a noise so you can see what's happening, and this shows you a noise channel. This is great. What I feel like is a little bit more convenient is to I will split my pane. I just hit Alt and the number 8 to split my pane, and then I go in here to Viewers, Motion Effects, and then I just have this on a secondary viewport, so I can not only so that I can see, but also so that I can reference these channels really quickly and easily, which I'll show you in just a second. So now what I want to do, we're talking about the keyboard in chop, so I'm just going to drop that down. And as you saw with the noise, when you click this blue display flag, what that does is it will display whatever channel is associated with the node in this motion effects viewport. And you can have multiple channels, so you can have as many channels as you have. You can have those selected, and they'll it'll just show you a composite of them there, or just one on top of the other, not really added together or anything. So I'm also going to drop down a null just to be clean, because I'm not going to use my raw keyboard input. I am going to do a few things in between to process it. The orange flag is sort of the output flag, so I'm just going to put out keyboard 1. You can call that whatever you would like. Now the keyboard in, by default, it has it's just accepting one input, K1. That stands for the number 1 on your keyboard, not your number pad if you have that on your keyboard, but just the number 1 above your Q. And you can put in, it looks like, up to 3 different keys here. For the time being, I'm just going to use 1. And that generates this one channel, this K1. But if I were to put like K2 here, then I would also have a K1 and a K2. You can do those, again, add multiples. For our purposes, just showing you how it works, I'm only going to use the 1. So when I first started messing around with this, I was like, okay, I got a keyboard chop, let me hit the number 1, and it's not doing anything. And the reason being is, for this keyboard chop to work, Houdini needs to be in what it calls intercept mode, and what that does is it disables most of the hotkeys from your keyboard, and then it just looks for inputs from you, the user. So to get into what Houdini calls intercept mode, you have to have your scroll lock turned on. Now I don't have a scroll lock on my keyboard, and many of you might not either. So what I'm going to do is show you how to do this on Windows. So you just look for your on-screen keyboard, and then just turn that on. And what that's going to do is it pops up this screen, and then you can click your scroll lock. Now if you're on a Mac, you'll probably have to Google how to turn on your scroll lock. or maybe you have a key on your keyboard that'll do it. But as soon as you do that, you see a couple things. One, you hear a little click through your speakers, and then also down here in the play bar, you see that this is turned orange. And that's exactly what needs to happen. When this turns orange, that means that you're in intercept mode. And when you hit your keyboard 1, you see this value, this K1 channel, change from 0 to 1. Now, if this doesn't come on when you're when you hit your scroll lock, I have found that I needed to like pull this down so it wasn't maximized, and then maximize it again, and do that while I was clicking on and off. It may be a little bit quirky, but if this is orange, you're good to go. So now, like I said, we saw that this is going from 0 to 1. Let me show you quickly how to reference this back into your onto your object. What I want to do is I want to drive the height of my cube by this channel. So if you've been using Houdini for a while, you may know that you can just you can type chop expression into this line, but honestly, I always forget the syntax for that, and the quickest, easiest way is just to grab this K1, grab whatever the channel's name is. Yeah, whatever that channel's name is, and you can rename this whatever you want inside of your ChopNet. But you grab that and click it, drag it, and then release it right on whatever parameter you want, and just say chop reference. And as soon as we did that, our box collapsed to 0, and when we hit R1, it pops back up to 1. All right, so that's really the long and short of it, but we're not going to leave it at that. That's not really so useful. Let me turn scroll lock off so I can add some more chops in here. I want to use a math. What this math chop is going to do is it does multiple things. You can composite different chops together by these parameters, but what I'm going to do is just remap the range. I've incoming range. This is like a fit range in VOPs. What I have coming in is binary because of the key press is either happening or it's not, so it's a 0 or a 1. But I want this to go from maybe 1 to 3. And let me turn scroll lock back on, and now I've got 1 to 3. All right. Scroll lock back off, and now this is fun to play with. Like you can just make your cube big or small or whatever, but that's not so useful. We need to be able to record that to be able to use it in our project. So there's a record chop, which by default is set to on. Everything that how it's set by default is what you need to record an incoming channel. What will happen is if this thing loops, like by default your play bar down here will loop, and actually I'll just show you. Scroll lock. All right, so now you can see this. I'm recording just this impulse, but then when it comes back around and loops, it's just going to write over that channel, which is not what I want. So while we're recording, let me go ahead and just record a little bit of this. And that's going to be good enough. What I tend to do if I'm actually going to record something, like whether I'm like tapping out a beat against maybe an audio track or whatever, I'll just set this to play once, so that when it gets to the end of your timeline here, it's not going to jump back and overwrite your file. And speaking of overwriting files, anytime that I hit play when this is set to record, it's just going to overwrite whatever that channel is with whatever the current value is. So after you get something that you're happy with, you need to turn this to off. And you can't bypass it. If you bypass it, all of your information goes away. You just need to set this to off so that it will maintain this animation curve and not overwrite it continually. So now that I've got this curve, I'm going to turn off my scroll lock so that I can use my keyboard as usual. Alright, so that's doing what we asked it to, but it's not particular. I'm just going to turn this down to 150. But it's not particularly cool, and it's not even that useful if you're looking for something that's really abrupt, maybe that will work, but let's see if we can process this channel a bit further. There are multiple chops that you can use to, you can play around with this. You can do anything that you can find in here. But one really useful chop is a lag chop. And what that's going to do is it takes your, let me see. So the red channel here is the record, like this red line is the record, and the blue one is the result of the lag. So these two values are the how smooth it's going to make the incoming curve, or I guess the attack, and then the second lag is the release. Right. So now we've got. You can back this off just a little bit. So we've got still a very, very hard attack, and then a much smoother release, or a much slower release. You can also overshoot. You can add some overshoot, so this actually will go up above the value of the incoming value. And I'm just gonna leave that like that. Lastly, I think we can. This will break our animation, but we can rename this channel from what's coming in as K1. If you want to make this more friendly, or just to be more specific, you can say box height. And as I said, that broke what we were doing, because this has a hard reference to the K1. But we can just fix that by dragging this back over here. Oops. Shouldn't do that while you're playing. Let's see if it'll. Let me also hit save. So pause your playback and then do it. Chop reference. Now we're back to where we were. So that's only so exciting. You can use your imagination and come up with any kind of way to use a keyboard to do any number of things. But another thing that I messed around with a little bit was using these keyboard inputs to drive particle velocity, and maybe we'll try to set it up to change the color as well. So let's just see about that real quick. Let me start by doing driving down the sphere. Sorry, I had a moment there. Let's see, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And then I'm going to add some point normals. So normal, switch this to points, and then add a point velocity. And what I want to do is just use those normals, to drive my velocity. And then lastly, I'm going to put down a color. Alright, so the color is just, I'll just leave it at 1 for now. And then a pop network, and this can be very simple. All I'm doing is just shooting particles out of there along the normal vector. Let's add a drag, not that one, a pop drag. Alright, and I'm gonna turn down the amount of these, and turn down the life, and increase the variance of their life, and that's going to work for our purposes. I'm going to hop back into the same chop network, and what I want to do is I'm going to just copy a lot of this. I want to use another keyboard in. Let me pull up my on-screen keyboard to get my scroll lock. So my channel, oops, that scroll lock stopped working. There we go. Now it's back on. Alright, so I have 0 to 1 on my number 1 key on my, let's see, I want K2 is what I want my, yep, K2 is going to be my number 2. Turn the scroll lock back on. So now I can see that my K1 channel is moving up, my K2 channel moves up. I'm going to go ahead and set up my records for these, because I do want to record both of these. So this record is going to, I think the record is really only, I think they only record one channel at a time. Or maybe they record both. Let's do a quick test here. Set this back to play once. Play, so there's my 1, there's my 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Alright, let's record them both, which is great. This is exactly what I want. I think I should be able to do a lag on both of those and get them both at once. Yep. Alright, and then I'm going to drop down another null. And this null will have 2 channels on it. And what I want to do is, I think I do want to rename these again. Or actually, I mean, I've already shown how to rename them. I'm just going to leave them the way they are. So for this point velocity, I want that to be driven by my number 1. So my keyboard input 1. Oops, I hit the wrong thing. That needs to be your chop reference, not the current value. And I want the color to be driven by the K2. Alright, chop reference. Alright. You can do that across all 3. I'm just going to do it to 1. And now, if we play this back, I'm not going to get anything because I'm still in record mode. Let me turn on scroll lock, and I'll come back and see. Now I'm getting some impulses on when I hit the 1 key. Actually, let me just turn this to loop. So when I hit the 1, I'm getting these like velocity bursts, and when I hit 2, it's changing the colors of the particles. Yeah, I'm not gonna record that. I just wanted to show that, and then turn off scroll lock. And then one last thing that I thought was kind of fun. Everybody loves the pig head. So let's see. Maybe I'll come into my, not my UV view, but my right view here. And let me grab my selection tool, make that a lasso selection, and then points. I'm just going to grab his mouth here. I'm sure everybody knows where this is going already. Let me see, soft fall off. I'm going to make this pig talk a little bit. Alright, there we go. That's really all we need. And then this is called a blend shape. I always forget what that's called for just 1 second. So I want to plug my source into this first input of the blend shape, and then my edited, this would be like in Maya or even Cinema, I think that'd be called a morph target, or a blend shape. So anyway, that's my open mouth, is my rest state. And then to blend between these, we just use this. So I am going to, again, hop back into my chop network. I'm just gonna do another one. Keyboard. I'm only gonna use one here. I'm gonna do a null 3. I'm gonna call this out pig. Drop a lag in here as well. I will need a math. Well, actually, I won't need a math for this because my blend goes from a 0 to 1 anyway, so that's all I need. And let me actually, before I do that, let me disable this so I don't get confused in the motion effects view down here. I am going to rename this one just to be a little bit more clean. So whatever's coming in, this wildcard, any channel coming in is going to get changed to pig. Alright, and now in my blend, I'm going to grab this pig channel and paste that reference, scroll lock on, and let's see what we can do. So we're making him talk. I'm going to record that. Chop that. Let's turn scroll lock off, drop down a record. I'm gonna play through this once and let's go. And now you can see that when I'm recording, you get the effect of that lag. When I was just playing it back, you can't really get the effect of a lag on a channel that really only has one time slice. You need the full channel range for it to apply that lag. Let me turn that off and turn my scroll lock off. And now we're back. So this is our little piggy talking with a nice lag. Maybe we can also just grab a noise, and maybe I'll add a merge here. And that is, let's see what this channel is actually called, noise channel 1. And then maybe I'll use that on a transform in the transform around the y-axis with this outpig channel chop reference. Let's play that back and see what it looks like. Very, very, very minimal. You can grab this amplitude and just crank that way up. Still not very much. So let's drop a math in here. Insert node, math. And rather than changing the range on this, let me set this to loop again. Rather than changing the range on that, what I want to do is just go to the multiply and really crank that up. Let me turn this off here. Alright, so we can really crank that up. So he's starting to look a little bit crazy. And maybe I'll make this period a bit longer. You can add another lag or a filter, or really filter however you'd like. Actually, I will add a lag here. Let me just pause this. Just copy that one. Yeah, let's see. And that's it. I mean, you know, you can do anything you can think of with driving these channels. These are just 3 kind of goofy setups that to get your wheels turning. I really like working with chops. I think that they force me to think about my scene a little bit differently, and that gets me to come up with different ideas and, you know, generate different ideas, generate different motions that would probably be, it's not impossible to keyframe these things, but it is, to me, it's a lot more fun to do it this way. So that keeps me in a better state of mind sometimes when I'm approaching projects. And again, you know, these don't have to be keyboard inputs. You can use, there's lots of different chops in here that you can use. Let me just pull up the device. You can use any kind of, you can use your microphone. You can drive particles by like blowing air at your microphone to make it sound like wind. You can use a MIDI keyboard if you have one. You can use your mouse. These are some things I might go into other videos about if I come up with something that's interesting enough to share. It's a fun way to try to rough in animations in a way that's thinking maybe a little bit outside the box, particularly if you're coming from other 3D packages that don't offer a way to bring in inputs from the outside world aside from just like keyframing in a timeline. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it like sparks some kind of idea. If you have something that you make, I'd love to see it. That stuff is really fun to me. So you can hit me on Twitter. It's at what I found with underscores in between the words. All those links are in the on my YouTube page. Yeah, so thanks. If you find this stuff interesting, please do subscribe. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I at least have a few more ideas for some chop videos, so I will at least have a couple more of these. I'm trying to do it a lot more regularly. So thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it.